All right, we're live.
Happy Halloween, LinkedIn. Welcome to Sales from the Crypt. Taylor Dahlem here, normally sole marketer at Pickle, the conversation intelligence platform for full cycle sellers, but honored today to be co-captaining today's spooky show and essentially pumped to resurrect some sales icebergs and deals that died on the vine.
Yeah, super excited to be here, joining Taylor here as co-host from the UserGems side of the house. I am Kenny the Shark today, from the UserGems team as a senior ADR over here. Super excited to get the show on the road. We've been super pumped to have everybody on board for this call. We got Junior, Maggie, Nick, and Kristen. Super excited for all you guys to be here.
Yes, Sales from the Crypt. Essentially, we're focusing on reliving past deals that, like we said, died on the vine or died in the pipeline. And more importantly, the lessons learned from each one of those and how we're implementing those lessons moving forward. As Kenny alleged to, joining us today are some of the top sales LinkedIn voices, top pros, if you will, out there. Junior Latte, Maggie Bloom, Kristen Connor, and Nick Smith. These brave souls will be bringing the heat today and adding some insight, Brady Bunch style.
Brady Bunch style. I like that. Maybe we should have done a Brady Bunch theme. Opportunity missed.
We could all dress like that.
Yeah. What's on the docket first up? What are we rolling with?
Yeah, I think to kick this off too, something probably everybody's waiting for today, to explain a little bit of our giveaways we got going on here for Halloween. So I'll have Amber over here from the UserGems side of the house just explain a little bit about the giveaways before we get the show on the road.
Okay, I'll try my best. So I'm a pig in a blanket today. In case no one got the reference. So essentially what we'll do is we'll do giveaways throughout. We're going to get it going with Junior's story. So anyone who joins while Junior's talking, if you will just type #cold-call in the chat, then we'll do like a random giveaway. And the first person you'll win a piñata. So if anyone wants a personal piñata that looks like Dracula, now is your chance. So type cold call in the chat, and we'll do that after Junior's done with the story. I'm going to go.
Do they get to fill their own candy in that piñata, or does it come with candy?
It's got name brand candy. I can promise you that. No now and laters. We're talking like
batteries included in this one. That's awesome. So let's get started. We've got the intros or the giveaways teed up. We're excited for those things, and throughout the conversation here, please don't hesitate to chat in, hit those hashtags, and we'll try to get some sweet stuff your way. But first, joining us, as we alluded to, Junior Latte, coming in hot. One of my my partner in crime with How I Deal as well over at Pickle. Excited to have him join us. Junior, what's up, man?
Yes. Oh, this deal got me fired. Okay. The deal I'm talking about, I literally lost my job. Pharaoh was beheaded. I don't know. What would they do to a Pharaoh? They did something to me. It wasn't great. But I'm that one pickle guy, right? I'm around. That's how most people remember me when I have conversations. They're like, oh, it's that one pickle guy. So should I just dive in with some context?
Yeah, give us. You alluded to the end there, but give us the scope of how we got here. Maybe set us up the details of the deal and where things started.
Okay, so I was working this deal with this company based out of Mankato, Minnesota. I'm not from Minnesota. I may have even pronounced it wrong. But if you don't know, in February, it's like 6 degrees there. Okay, freezing. So I'm flying into Minneapolis, and I'm driving an hour and a half south to this place, Mankato. I had 3 meetings there from January, February, March, the coldest times of the year, just to like set the scene. It was brutally cold, not something I chose to do. But I was working this deal. I was running with a champion who was a super nice, very energetic. He was clearly the head of the project, right? Like he's pulling all the appropriate people in, CFOs coming, CROs coming, CMOs coming. It's wonderful. Like this guy's connecting me with everyone. This deal was roughly 3 months long. From beginning to finish, he's giving me access to everybody. And I'm like, me and him are texting. I'm like texting him back and forth. He's, booking meetings for me with me, my VP of sales, and a CEO. So it's like as good as could be. Where it went wrong, I was competing in the student vertical, and historically the company I was with were winning these student deals all the time, where we'd come up against competition and it was just a no-brainer to go with the company I was working for. And we kind of rested on that fact. We didn't lean in. I didn't connect them with other buyers. I didn't do a really good job of like driving the fact that we owned the student space, right? Student living space. So that's where it started to tank a little bit. How much further do you want me to go, Taylor?
I think as far as the student deal space, it's a tricky industry, right? Or a tricky channel to navigate. Maybe talk about like where normally deals go correctly, or like how these things normally wrap up, and then we'll dive into where this one went wrong.
Yeah. So for us, the deals for student can be super quick, and they never happen around spring, summer, fall, because that's like when students are moving in and out, right? So all these deals happen over the winter, which is like the gold standard, right? Like the timing is right. Everything is perfect. They need our software. I did not drive home how much they needed the software. And they were looking at a competitor that had a student product, but it sucked, to be frank. It really sucked. So I was selling like the biggest, the baddest, the best in the space, and I lost to a product that sucks. And it all came down to a conversation where I brought our SVP, and after this call, the SVP walked off and said, "This deal is dead. You are not going to win." I'm going to stop there before I spoil it more.
What about Maggie, Nick, Kristen? Have you all dealt with anything like this before we get all the way to the end here? But when it's teeing up like this, have you seen something like this before?
I think we've all been in places or in deals where you feel like whether you own the space or you have the superior product, and you start to think, you drink your own Kool-Aid a little bit and think, how could anyone possibly choose something else?
That's it. That's what I did. Thanks for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
We've all done it.
Where were you 4 years ago? No, it's like, I'm the pharaoh building pyramids daily, and they went and asked the Romans to do it. That's what it was like. Okay, so let me talk about this final call. It's myself and our champion and my SVP of sales. And right before the call, the CFO was supposed to join, and I get a text from my champion saying, "Hey, CFO can't make it." He's like, "But we're still good to go." I was like, "Great." So we jump on the call. It's supposed to be just this 5-minute, like, recap the deal, kind of figure everything out, and then decision was like that day, right? So we hop on the call. He's super friendly the way he has been. And the very end, like, we're just talking through some specs. We've already delivered pricing. They've already delivered pricing. The very last thing he says is, he goes, "Hey, as soon as the decision is made, I will let you know the direction we're going to go." Then we hang up. My SVP of sales says that deal is dead. And this is when I started to learn the difference between like a champion and a mobilizer, right? A champion is someone sold on your product and like driving the initiative internally for you. A mobilizer is someone who's been assigned to drive the deal and everything, bring all the pieces together, but that mobilizer is not sold on you, right? And that's what I was working with, where I thought I had a champion in this deal. And then later that afternoon, sure enough, texted me and said, "Hey, we have chosen to go with X competitor," to which I really needed this deal. Not only really needed it, but it's just like a space that we never lost. So to lose it at a time when we were only winning got me fired. I said goodbye.
Tough spot.
It was, I was
Over
in a pickle. Over text, which didn't seem abnormal because we had been texting. But when you start to realize he's a mobilizer and not a champion, it was pretty rough. We did push and get like a final call, to like talk about why, but I was already fired by the point that this happened. I mean, logistically, I was probably already fired.
Junior, what this might lead into the next question here, but curious, mobilizer versus champion. Maybe this is something that you've done differently moving forward and start to notice these things, but like, what are some maybe key indicators that you probably missed at the time, but now start to look for in deals where you're like, this person might not have the either interest or authority or anything like that, that you're looking for in terms of a deal champion?
At no point was this mobilizer like, I love this, let's drive this initiative, let's make this thing work, right? It was more so just like, hey, what do you need? Okay, great, it's booked for you. What do you need, right? Almost like an assistant, as compared to the person who is like, I have chosen you and I hope we can work together to make it work. So that's the distinction that I walked away with, a hard lesson learned.
Nick, do you maybe in your day-to-day too, I'm curious, like, as where you see champions and mobilizers, I know you have a little longer deal cycles or a little more complex. What does that look like on your end? Have you seen that before too, the difference between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I agree. I think everybody's been in Junior's spot before, especially like, I feel like when I first was getting into sales, like I didn't know the difference between a mobilizer or a champion. And, I would get happy ears all the time. It's like, oh, hey, they got the problem. Sweet, here's the solution. And it's like, no, there's a big difference between pain and a pain indicator, right? And actually getting them to feel the pain. So yeah, definitely have been there. I think it's really important to test your champion throughout the sales call, like trying to ask them for maybe little favors and just sort of gauge how much they're willing to fight for you.
Yep.
And then the other thing too is, hey, going back to MedPick, right? Sometimes you've got that champion, but we don't want to rely only on that champion. So we should also know who our economic buyer is too, right? Who's the executive that's going to be involved in this, and start multi-threading.
Junior, what would you do differently outside of identifying, kind of those buyer types or those champions? Like anything else that came across your plate that you're like, shit, that could have been done a little differently?
Yeah, we rested too much on the fact that we own the space, right? It should have been like, let's drive home the value as compared to just being like, so-and-so works with us and works with us and works with us and works with us, right? It's like, let's figure out their problem and drive that aspect of the platform that is so good home, not the fact that, the majority market works with us. Needless to say, I did not get the ceremonial tomb. I got the backyard burial, which, no afterlife is what that means. I don't know how much y'all know, but there's zero afterlife.
That's exactly what that means. But hey, you've resurrected. You're here now. You're crushing it more than ever. And it's because of those lessons that you learned along the way that hopefully it doesn't repeat itself again. Nick, is that your hand raised?
Yeah, I had a quick question about this because I feel like this comes up a lot, where when you have competition, like, should you volunteer who your competitors are to try and frame things, or maybe don't bring it up if they haven't mentioned it? I'm curious how everybody addresses that.
I think it depends on when they bring it up or if they do. Yeah, and just like, I feel like you can get a sense of if this is okay to bring up, or, if they drop names or if they're familiar with certain things, especially in the software space. Like if someone starts kind of becoming a bit knowledgeable about certain like something that's similar to Mailshake, I know that they probably have used a competitor, looked at a competitor, and I've uncovered that information. And so that's where I'll just, I guess, more ask about it than bring any of those parts up, because yeah. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't always go that way where people will actually disclose everything, but I think you have a good idea either way if you're going to bring it up.
Yeah, I think personally on my end too, just to obviously Maggie crush that, but like you can tell when there's for me at least, when there's very specific questions they're asking, or like if they're more informed than I think they are in terms of the problems we're solving or the pains where I'm looking to discover or uncover in a way. that's probably a sign of like, all right, there's somebody else in the ring that I want to start to understand, who that is. I don't know. For me, it's like how directness is never. Sometimes it can go wrong, but it doesn't usually go wrong. And it's like, hey, I'm sure this is. We're not the first stop, right? We're not the first person you're talking to, or I'm sure you're familiar with this, considering you've been in this space 20 years. You probably are familiar with some of these players. Giving you a little insight of maybe what you all are looking to and leaning towards, and maybe I can help bridge that gap between, hey, we can't solve that, or we can solve this, or they can do that better, but maybe here's a different take that we have on that problem. To me, kind of honesty is the best policy in that sense.
Yeah, I'd chime in, but I lost the deal. Where's the giveaway? I think that's what we're on to.
We don't want to hear any more from Junior. Kenny or Amber, if you want to chime in with maybe the winner of deal or giveaway number 1 here.
Yeah. I was really impressed with our pun skills. So if everyone else could just like keep the punnage up, that would be really wonderful. No pressure, but just it's a pun contest now.
Of course.
All right. Maybe I shouldn't have given away that it's a piñata because it doesn't seem like the interest is there, but here we go. Oh, I hope it's not me. No.
Oh my.
No. Okay, well, I'm going to pick someone at random and you're getting a piñata in your DMs.
That's the surprise. You're not going to know if a piñata can show up at your door. You're going to love every minute of it. All right, we'll have one more, or giveaway number 2. Maybe we won't tee up what it is, but Amber, what's the giveaway number 2 detail?
It is #close-lost, and it'll be a surprise. So if someone wants to be surprised by the giveaway, put #close-lost in the chat.
Just know that it won't be a piñata.
Yeah.
Giveaway number 2.
Secret giveaway number 2.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, Maggie's already chatted in here, but of course we want to hear from Maggie Bloom, another influential voice in the sales world on LinkedIn. But you don't really get to that level unless you've experienced some shortcomings and downsides of sales. But Maggie, give us a quick intro of what you're up to, maybe what costume we're rocking today, and we'll dive in.
Yeah, so you all know my name. It's Maggie. Says right on the screen. But my character today, I'm Wendy Torrance, who's the wife from The Shining. So you can see down that scary hallway. She usually wears turtlenecks and a little collared shirt. But I'm a sales evangelist at Mailshake. I just transitioned in this role, but I've been in sales for the past 4 years. And one thing I just want to say before I get into my story is, obviously we had some prep for this webinar, like got these questions earlier, thought about it a little bit. And when I actually sat down to think about, there are so many stressful days where things have gone wrong in sales. But when I sat down, I could not think of a specific scenario or deal. And I just want to put that as a testament to people out there that there are definitely days in sales where I thought it was the end of the world, or I was going to get fired. Unfortunately, that happened with Junior. But I just want to say that we're all going to have days like that, and you're going to forget about them, because I tried, I sat down for 30 minutes and I was like, I cannot think of a single story. And then a story did come to my mind of digging deep enough. But I just wanted to throw that out there at first, that most of the stuff we deal with is not the end of the world. And we all bounce back from it. Junior is a great example of it too, from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. And yeah, Junior, like we were saying, has come back better than ever. Probably needed to lose that deal in order to get to where he's at today. But exactly. Maggie, like you said, you dug deep. A story did come to light. Give us some context on that deal that you were working on.
Yeah. So again, I don't know how you even go after Junior's story since that extreme happened, but I'll set the scene. This was I want to say 1.5 years ago. Someone on our team had been closing a great amount of yearly deals, and they did a training for everyone on the sales team. And they were like, okay, hey, this is my methodology for closing annual deals, closing more annual deals. And after you get it out of a training like that, at least for me, I get super pumped. I can't wait to get to my next demo and try out X, Y, and Z. So I get to that demo and like, I kind of was seeding, like, trying all the things that this person on our team mentioned and probably did really, really well. I probably had mentioned, I thought it was sly that I was doing it this way, but probably like 4 times the benefits of our annual package, like throughout the entire demo, the 30 minutes that I had with this person. And afterwards, I felt so great. I was like, I like set things up from the beginning. Like, this is how our successful customers buy. They buy annual because of, and we all know we sell annual plans, but you get an investment, you have a commitment with us and our team, X, Y, and Z, you get these trainings. So yeah, I was feeling great after. I was like, cool, I just had that training and I was like able to put that feedback in there right away. And then I got an email like 30 minutes later from this lead. And I don't know, I mean, for most of us, I think most of us on this call sell to other salespeople. So I feel like that just creates like a whole like feedback loop, like uninvited, definitely. Uninvited feedback loop.
I believe echo chamber is what the kids are saying these days.
Yes. So I get an email from this lead and they're basically like, it's like a paragraph long, but to summarize it, like, I really loved Mailshake, everything, like check the boxes for whatever we wanted. But like, I'm not going with Mailshake because of the way you conducted that demo. Like, basically, you're the reason why I'm not going with Mailshake. And I was like, of course, bummed. And like, I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, and they even mentioned like, you tried pushing an annual deal so hard. So I was thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, I had probably the worst commission breath like ever.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that sucked. And getting feedback like that is never much fun, especially like with someone else in the space, someone who's like in a higher position as you. But as we can all agree, like, we get feedback like that all the time. And it's kind of laughable sometimes. So I don't know, but that's my story. Nothing too intense, but it's never fun when you get those emails.
No. And Maggie, like you said, you teed it up. Like, unfortunately, that's exactly the not tactic necessarily, but the approach you were planning on taking is like, oh, I need to push more annual deals. And that was the reason you lost.
Oh yeah, I did. I listened back to the call and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't think you realize when you're actually in the call and you just got that training and then afterwards you're like, oh yeah, I sound pretty pushy in there, like the guy from Fargo.
You're going to want that annual. Maybe a question for everybody, but at some point we all feel like we're packaging some kind of timeshare, right? Like some kind of scam I'm pushing here where I just feel like you said, the sales commission breath. I don't know, like, is it as apparent, Maggie, maybe as obvious, not so obvious until you went back and look at it, but has anyone felt that during the meeting and maybe changed up like mid-meeting at that point, like, oh shit, I'm sounding a little too pushy here?
None of us have done that, Taylor. Crickets.
Sound like it.
That's a Maggie thing. No, I love the uninvited feedback loop and the personal. Like, sales is so personal. It's hard to not take any type of feedback as just like a direct reflection of myself.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter like how good your product is or anything. It's just like, okay, they're just attacking me. I lost because of me. It's so personal. And one of my, personal favorite lines is to say something like, I'm kind of butchering this. Should I start over, or is there something else you care about? And I just like acknowledge the fact that, I word splurged for too long or something like that. That's the typical, one-liner for me to like try to get myself out of something I've clearly been digging.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it's pretty common sometimes for management to push you into a direction where you feel like you have to be that pushy salesperson. And sometimes you just have to do it to kind of be in compliance with leadership. And so in that situation, I like to mirror what Junior does. Like, I start with an accusational audit. I'm just like, hey, like, you're probably going to hate me for this and I'm going to seem really pushy, but XYZ statement that's really pushing.
That's really pushing.
It can relieve some of the pressure because you're acknowledging the fact that you're being, salesy.
Yeah.
And it's like that, I don't know, we're on a sales call, right? Like, what the hell did you expect? That's kind of, to me, it's this weird dance you have to play with a prospect, or it's like, you have some, or I have something you need, you have a need for it. Like, let's figure out the best terms and get there. And I'm going to throw out, classic negotiation style. Here's where we're starting. Here's my anchor point. From there, you can come back or not. But I don't know. It's always a tough spot to be in, especially like you were saying, Nick, when it's coming down from on high and you have to comply with that or have to push that. It's kind of like, I don't know, what a grocery store is like, push you the stuff that's about to expire, food stuff.
Get this first.
Yeah. Like we have a special on lobster. It's like, that sounds like it's been here for a while.
You want the technical warranty on this $6 surge protector? No thanks.
Okay, Maggie, they did this to me, right? But going back, aside from one less annual push, what would you do different?
Yeah, so something that I would have done differently and something I learned from it is, like, even though we go through trainings or there's things or books we read or all this content we can consume about sales, like you log into LinkedIn, you could try out something new from each post. But just knowing at the end of the day that my agenda, like any of my sales agendas, doesn't match my leads agenda. And if I dug into that a little bit more on the call, it would have been a smoother process. But I would say too, something I learned is, don't let negative feedback like ruin your day, because you could be doing everything perfectly and you're still going to get negative feedback. So, I mean, in this situation, I definitely know I did something wrong, but like, don't take every single negative thing that someone says. And the reason why they don't buy is because of you, because you never know what they're going through. But what I would do differently is, just think more about my buyer's agenda, like what they were saying in the process. And if they already kind of said no to annual, like, listen to that. It's probably not going to change because that's probably the way they buy every other type of software. And I could have just, last thing I could have done differently is shut my mouth.
I think going off too with what Amber's saying about the uninvited feedback loop, we've all experienced those no's, those horrible rejections, but getting at least an answer, whether it be yes or no, is at least something that you can work with. So diving in, digging a little deeper, like you're talking about right now, Maggie, I'm sure everyone in the chat here is in a similar position at some point in their life. So if you have, message us, like, when have you gotten that rejection? How have you overcome in the future? And what would you change differently when you find yourself in those situations?
Excellent point, Kenny. And maybe that leads us into this next giveaway, the winner of giveaway number 2.
That was like a really great motivational speech. I'm still processing it.
Kenny from the top rope, just handing out life lessons.
Kenny the Shark here.
All right, here we go. And I will not win this one, I promise. My name's not even in there.
Christina, let's go.
Christina, you're winning a box of cookies.
Nice.
It'll be delicious. So
what kind of cookies are we talking here?
Assortment. The best kind.
All kinds.
A variety.
Yeah.
Generally. Perfect. Maybe, Kenny, if you want to give an update on the audience engagement, maybe some ways we can get the people in the comments involved as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we really do want to hear from everybody in the comments too. Like I said earlier, we all have these stories, these horror stories to share. So if you have one that's tip of your tongue right now that you've been sitting on for the rest of this, or for the entire beginning of this chat, share with us. Let's collaborate in that chat. Let's listen to your stories, and let's see those horror stories on what went wrong.
Kenny, throw one of your horror stories in the comments to get us going.
Oh yeah, so many as a BDR, I'm sure.
Sweet. Well, let's keep moving. We've got another story teed up here. Kristen Connor joining us from UserGems, a co-sponsor as well. So excited to have her deliver a story here. As we all know, everybody's names are in the chats, but But Kristen, please give us a quick intro, maybe what you're up to, what you're focused on, and we'll go get rolling on the deal.
Yeah, happy to. So I have been in enterprise sales for 4 years now, at places like Tableau, Salesforce, and Outreach. Now at UserGems, and excited to be there from Series A on up. Unlike Maggie, I immediately knew which deal I would be talking about because it's so painful, and there have been a number of them, but yeah, this one definitely stands out. So in 2020, I got promoted and I took over this book of business for this new segment of enterprise, and I was super excited to see this 7-figure deal that I was inheriting. It was in like mid funnel, I would say. And so like after introductions and handoffs from the other rep, I went on site. This is obviously very early on in 2020. So second day on site, I realized that the client did not understand like a key piece of our offering. And so this was a bank, and this guy who was definitely our champion, had just gotten hired into this bank, and his whole brand was that he was going to modernize the bank and put everything in the cloud. And there was a key part of our technology that he wanted to do that was very crucial to what he wanted, that we could absolutely not do in the cloud. And I was like, and there was luckily, now this was a very large deal. There were probably 20 different people involved in this deal that I was coordinating. And the services partner was there on site with me, and she and I got on a call, and I was like, hey, I think he may not understand this bit of it. And she was like, I agree. And so we both came to the conclusion that we were both going to choose to believe that it was just a misunderstanding, and that there hadn't been anything communicated from the prior rep. It was just this guy just misunderstood the tech. So we had to get on a call and tell him, hey, I had to call him like late because we were getting ready to go into a meeting where he was going to present this the next day. And I was like, hey, I think that, so we had to straighten out over the phone, and he was very disappointed, and he was more than disappointed. He was frustrated, and he was also embarrassed, right? Because like this was like his baby. This was his thing that was going to make his name at the bank. And even though our biggest competitor could not do nearly what we could do, but I came back from that on-site telling my VP, I was like, this deal is dead. We've embarrassed this guy. And even though our competitor can't do like these 2 or 3 features that were important, I was like, this one's gone. And it was like one of those, my heart just sunk through the floor. It was not fun.
Brutal. Yeah, I think there's that fine balance, right? Especially when you're coming from a position as like, not necessarily a top option or top player, but clearly the bigger, more fulfilling, more features, whatever it is, can address more pain. But at the same time, sales is always going to be, it comes down to emotional, right? Like it's an emotional reaction. It's how I felt that day, not how I felt, or what steps need to be taken. What do I need to do? And I guess maybe Kristen, explain kind of that feeling, that emotion, that embarrassment, like you said, from the prospect, but from your side of things, like, hey, how could I have done this better, or like set this up better? Maybe what would you have done differently?
This was a very unique situation in that I was picking up what somebody else had handed off. And so I immediately called that prior rep, and I was like, hey, this is the situation. And he swore up and down, no, we explained it to him. And that definitely happens, like there's just times where we think we've communicated something clearly, and for whatever reason, it doesn't register on the other side like we thought it did. I don't know that there's anything that I would have done differently, because we surfaced it as soon as as we could. And there really was like, I had been on the phone, like I tried, is there a workaround? Can we maybe do some part of this in the cloud so he can at least, we can, satisfy part of what he wants, maybe just with a workaround. And there just simply wasn't. But I think you called out, and sometimes like our hands are tied like that. I mean, I guess I could have not mentioned it. I guess I could have not brought it up, but that would have been ethically wrong. And so I think in sales and in life, it is interesting to me that the like morally right thing to do and the right thing to do from a business sense are frequently the same, because as we all know, sales is a small world and our customers run in small circles, and the damage that would have been done to my company's reputation by allowing that thing to be unsaid would have been terrible. So I don't know that there would have been anything I would have done differently. What I would do the same is, like you said, really identify that key emotional piece. I think it's so important to understand what is driving the deal from an emotional perspective for the customer side. Are they ambitious? Are they altruistic and they're trying to help their team do something better with your tech? And they frequently won't be able to tell you what that is, but it's our job to figure that out and serve that and really target that. And in this case, once they identified that the emotion had gone that way, my boss was like, no, we can still do so many features. And I'm like, feelings over facts. Like, this is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine too, if you try to push that through, and maybe you could have gotten the deal closed, and then they get into like the implementation, and it's like, well, this is not what I thought it was, and it escalates, and then it comes back to you, right?
Yeah.
It's not on anyone else; it's on you for closing the deal. And then, like Kristen, this client is pissed because you promised something that we can't deliver, and you're like, well, what do I do? It's like it seems like there is no chance to really win this deal if that one thing is what you can't do, but they have to have, right? Mm-hmm. In which case that totally happens. And I feel like you did the best thing. It's just like, we both need to walk away from this because I don't want to sell something and blow this up. So that's a hard one, especially when the numbers look good and the commission calculator, they look good, right? That's some more camels this year. We're going to harvest. But tis not the case.
No. And the other piece that is, it's exactly right. Like, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. But the other, what makes that additionally difficult to make that call is there were like 4 VPs that were involved that were individually calling me going, why can't we make this work? Why can't we make this work? Like, when you have a deal that has high visibility in the organization, like everybody thinks, oh, I want to do enterprise. And you're like, enterprise means a lot of eyes on your deals, and a lot of people have opinions about how it should go that aren't necessarily involved in it with you. And it's a lot. It's like a lot of pressure to add to that deal.
Nick, you were just dropping some heat in the comments. Can you expand on this show, that Warren Buffett quote? I think that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I think, Kristen, this is such a great story for everybody because I know especially that we probably have a lot of people who are maybe newer to sales tuning in, or even for the veterans too. Like, there's always that pressure. Quotas go up every single year, and so you always have this pressure to close the deal. But integrity is just non-negotiable. And so I'm butchering this quote from Warren Buffett, but it's something along the lines of, hey, it takes a lifetime to build a good reputation, but literally one bad act, you can throw that all away. And then you have no trust, like, forever. Once you lose that trust, it's impossible to build it back.
So true. So true. And it's, like you said, it just takes one word, one phrase, one moment where this normally enterprise deals, Kristen, maybe you can speak to how long these things last and how many people you have involved and how many different ways it can go wrong, but hasn't at this point. And then, inevitably something happens and it
I've got a big question. This is like the overwhelming thing for me that I have to know. Kristen, I'm sure you punched this into the commission calculator many times. What are we looking at here? What's like getting thrown off the table? Just give us like a relative value.
I think I have blacked that out of my memory. I have actually very, I don't have very many sales superstitions, but I do have, but like I never put something in my company's, even just a commission calculator that I'm using just for me. I never put it in unless it is all the way closed, because like in my mind, I can do the round math, but the specifics, I just don't do. It's just, I don't need that kind of stress.
All right.
But it's heartbreaking either way. And the other thing is, like, when in enterprise, when you're working with partners and you're working with multiple, like, so like our pre-sales are like their like bonus is involved in that, right? Our partner commission was involved in that. Like, you have to think, when you make that call, you are affecting everyone else's year too. And so it's like, it's not a fun thing. But I will say, I do firmly believe that like what goes around comes around. And like later in that year, I had a deal that in negotiations doubled in size, that we were not expecting. We were in no way expecting that.
Yes.
It may not always be right then, but just also just being able to like look at yourself and not have to know that you did something that you wouldn't want to explain to your mom or your kids, like is also good.
Sales karma is real.
It is.
For sure.
Yes, it goes around, it comes around. I think that's a good thought. And Junior, sorry, man, we can't give you hard numbers today.
I just know it's something Pharaoh would have approved of. That's it. That's all I wanted to know.
It's more or less, hey, Christian, what would you have bought if this?
Yeah. Say a Sphinx, please.
Not a pyramid.
Perfect. Amber, how about we tee up the last giveaway number 3 here?
Okay, giveaway number 3, mystery giveaway again. And it will be #ghosted in the chat.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So yes, please throw those hashtags in the chat. Let's get our last giveaway a good run for its money in terms of odds of winning. So let's dive into the 4th and final story here, given by our resident mad scientist, Nick Smith himself. Come on in, come on down. Give us a quick intro, what you're up to, and let's dive in.
Hey, thanks everybody. Yeah, Nick Smith, AE at WorkSpan. So yeah, this story, this one's painful. So it started out really great. I had a referral. I had just closed like my very first deal in SaaS. And so I'm feeling high, I'm feeling great, right? And I ask him, hey, is there anyone else that you think I should talk to? So they refer me over to this other client. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a slam dunk, because traditionally referrals, just have such a high close rate. I go into this referral. We have an awesome first discovery meeting. We even meet the second time, bring in the IT people, all the different stakeholders are there. It's looking beautiful. And I send the follow-up email and I'm blocked by their system. I'm like, what the heck? Literally, my emails can't go through. And so I'm like, what the hell? And I'm trying to call everybody that I met with. I'm not getting through, just nothing. So I'm just getting completely ghosted, just nothing, right? I'm asking my VP, hey, can you send him a message to see if the lines of communication are still open? I write this thing off for 2 months and I'm just like, oh man, it's just a closed loss deal. It comes back to life. I guess I planted it in the pet cemetery, so it comes back to life, right? Turns out what happened was the VP I was talking to originally, he was in the middle of a job search. So he ended up switching roles, and that's why he wasn't there. So his replacement actually sees my email chain, and they like reach back out to me, and this deal is back on. And so I'm like, oh yeah, all right. Now we're cooking with some gas. Things are going really well. We get to the point where it's like, hey, we got to go through procurement. The business decision is made, but we just got to go through procurement, InfoSec, legal, all that stuff. Well, we've got this vendor company that we work with. So we need to introduce you to them. So I start working with them. Halfway through the procurement process, the contact at this third-party vendor company, they switch jobs. So that delays it. So now I'm working with another person at this vendor company. That delays things. We have to go all the way back through, reapprove all the contracts and everything. We finally get to the end of this procurement process, which takes like 2 months. And I'm like, sweet, like, let's go ahead and sign. So I try and reach back out to the person who's now, the replacement for that other guy who left. Nothing. Just crickets. What the hell? I just went through 2 months of procurement. What's going on here? Right? I keep reaching out. I pick up the phone and I call. This guy ends up picking up. He's at a carnival. And I'm like, hey, man, like it's the middle of the workday. What's going on? Right? And he's like, oh, dude, I just got laid off. I was like, no.
Oh my God.
He just got laid off like a week ago, right after we finished this whole procurement process. And he's telling me on the phone that the whole company's strategy has changed. So he's like, I don't even know who to talk to now because I don't even think they're going to need your product. Right. So I'm like, oh my God. So I've spent like 6 months on this deal, multiple times getting ghosted and coming back to life. And so now I'm reaching out to like their head of sales and all these other people, and I'm just getting no traction. So to me, that's worse than that's the scariest thing. Like a quick no is fine. But the scariest thing in sales is getting led on for months and months and months. Yep. And then realizing, oh, this isn't going anywhere.
I just really want to know, did he tee up that he was at a carnival or did he ask?
Yeah.
I heard the music and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm at a carnival.
Because of course it's probably like, it's got to be like a Tuesday afternoon too.
It's like, this is cool.
He got laid off, so he might as well go to a carnival.
I feel like that's not the logical next step when you get laid off. Maybe it is.
I gotta go let off some steam at the the pitch.
Gotta hang
competition.
Hang out with scary clowns.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Nick. So all right, there's a lot that happened in that deal, but it seems like there's some things you would have done differently, but maybe first and foremost is the scariest part's dealing with legal and procurement, right? That's scary enough.
Yeah, I think a lot of lessons with that. Well, first of all, right, time kills all deals. Like that's a basic lesson, but it's just so true. And I think if I had really worked on like shortening that sales cycle, like if it had come in like a week or 2 weeks earlier, we would have been good, right? So multiple times it's because of the length of the sale that it ended up failing. And then secondly, I would say multi-threading, right? Because in both instances, I had a key champion that I was working with and I thought everything was great, but all my eggs were invested in that one little basket. And then when I'm reaching out to these other stakeholders, they're like, they don't really care because they're not bought in, right? They're not that key champion. So I would say both of those were some good lessons there.
What about, and this is for everybody, but multi-threading, I feel like Junior and I, on how I deal, it's like a constant theme that comes up. It's probably one of the most important aspects of sales, but one of the more overlooked, approaches, right? Like we're not always thinking like, who else can I get involved? But like, what are some of your all strategies in terms of looping in or maybe looking for more people to get involved in these deals to avoid that?
I think one easy way to do it, I mean, in one way, just kind of at the beginning of a conversation that I can do it is first, if you have multiple people, like let's say you're getting on a demo with someone and there's multiple people on there, that's the best time for you to follow up with each one of them individually, making sure that you've gotten all their questions answered. And something I was taught a while ago is when that does happen, let's say, there's 3 people on a demo, not all of them are going to have a chance to speak. You're probably going to have someone who's leading that whole call. But afterwards, just send everyone like a quick 20-second video that's personalized and say, hey, is there anything that wasn't answered on that call? And then at least that's starting the conversation and you're asking a question that's pretty legitimate there. But then there's also times where those, no one else is introduced during the sales process. So you're having one-on-one conversations. That's where you could just reach out to someone else that the company, share something relevant, ask them if they, should be a part of this too. Or if it's like, sometimes I get SDRs or AEs on demos, I reach out to their manager and just say, hey, your SDR or AE is rocking it or something. So just complimenting, but starting the conversation with something simply like that, I think is helpful in either case.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly helpful. And then I like to stay in contact with those SDRs or AEs that are on the demo. I had a mentor tell me one time that you need to have coaches at 3 levels in a deal. So you want to have a coach who is at the end user level of your product, a manager who manages a team like that, and then someone on the executive level, because when you do that, you'll start to see things from more of a 360, and the more is more, obviously, and people who can tell you like who's who in the zoo, like who really has the juice in the organization, who wants to get promoted, who is the one that despite their title, everyone's looking to them to do the thing. Like those are things you can't tell like via Zoom or sometimes even on site. And so the more, I think people always think multi-threading as executives, which it definitely should be, but I've had so much good information come from people at all different levels of the organization.
I say, Junior, you make a literal living on the AE to AE sequence. Like maybe loop us into some of that, like how you approach not just going after the executive, but also trying to get more information from all levels, like Kristen was talking about.
Yeah. Specific to me is the users, right? I just go after users in such a heavy way, trying to understand what their day-to-day process looks like. Because at the end of the day, your product, a lot of times, the person you're selling to isn't always the main user, right? So if you can get information from all those users, hey, I use it like this is the pain I'm having, these are the problems with the current, platform in place, or if they have nothing, they can tell you the process and you can figure out how your product best complements that. So that's the play when you go, to the lower level users, trying to like understand how they would use it, what influence it could have. And you just start to build a little, army of people that believe in you, that believe your product could work for them because you've instilled some confidence. And then you take that up the ladder to the people that you can.
And we've talked about this before, at least Junior and I, but like the concept of, I don't know what we call it, like almost like an inverse multi-thread as well, where it's like, not just you have to be the one making all these connections. Like, how can I take someone from within my organization? Maybe it's a VP at a certain level that's, equivalent to their VP there, and like start to make those connections and have them kind of almost, build a relationship, not just from yourself, but also like, how can I find other people within my organization and build more threads that way as well, build more relationships. And I think it doesn't guarantee, the close, but it gets you a little bit closer and a little bit more trust when, hey, you already know my founders, or you already know my VPs. I've introed everybody and now everyone's talking. And that's just an easier way to not have it all fall on you, that I have to manage 50 relationships. Like, hey, how can I spread some of that stuff out? And I don't know if inverse multi-thread is the right word, but that's what we call it.
That's the word we use. That's the word we use. Congratulations to everyone here, Kristen, Maggie, Nick, myself, and other listeners that have lost deals. No ceremonial burials for us, just the backyard stuff, just goes to show everyone loses deals, right? Like at any stage. Maggie's being with someone on the call who's like decides on the call that they're not going to move forward, from Nick, who's main person just disappeared because he got fired. Myself just resting too much on the fact that I figured we would win. And Kristen, I just went through everybody else's, and it's just not, you don't have exactly what they need, right? There's lots of different ways to lose a deal. And recognizing that before it happens can be really, really helpful. Like if Nick knew that they were going to pivot a different direction, like he can still maybe wedge his product in such a way to find alignment. And, the rest of us have some strong takeaways as well, but.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's head towards the end here. Got a couple more things to cover. Most importantly, let's get Kenny and Amber in here for giveaway number 3.
Yeah. Hey, Taylor, how is that mustache hanging in there?
It's not hanging. It's
You look all
hanging,
crooked.
it's hanging
Planted.
off.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. It's not Tom Selleck, but we're getting close.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to call out some of the comments. So Nick left a comment about a time that he cold called somebody and then they sold his number and then cold called him back over and over again. That is rough.
Revenge. Yeah.
Revenge.
Oh my God.
It's a serious commitment. To,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's next level.
Oh yeah.
And Gabrielle pointed out that the scariest part of SDR life is waiting for prospects to show up on the last day of the month.
Mm.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to do our final giveaway. The mystery giveaway is a Starbucks gift card so you can buy pumpkin spice lattes.
Ooh.
I know.
Let's go.
You got to do it today.
I was gonna say, is today the last day?
Last
Is
day for pumpkins.
I hope not.
Oh, geez.
What's the next gourd? What's the next thing?
Ooh.
Yay, congrats, Steven.
Steven, congratulations.
You're going to have so many pumpkin spice lattes.
Spice is coming in hot. Perfect. Well, we've given our last and final giveaway here, but let's maybe give away everybody one more tip before we say our sign-offs and goodbyes. But would love to kind of go around the Brady Bunch room here and deliver one last thing, maybe what you would have done differently, or if anybody's in a similar situation, any tips. But yeah, let's start with you, Junior.
Yeah, I lost my deal just resting on the fact that we were the bigger, better product, and I didn't find the pain that we can solve for them. So you may be bigger, you may be better, but you still need to find the pain and solve their problems.
Boom. Kristen.
This is not specific to my deal, but I want to piggyback off what you said about the different ways to multi-thread, because you can't always be the only one involved in that. Like you said, executive alignment is super important. I'll also point out, if you sell with a technical seller, an SC or an SE, they have so much more credibility than you do. So align your technical seller with the technical buyers on their side so that they can have that one-to-one communication all to themselves. And a lot of times that will go a long way to credibility, because they'll ask them things and say things to them that they wouldn't say to the account executive. So that's another good way to be creative with multi-threading.
Perfect. Maggie.
Yeah. So biggest takeaway is, even though we have these sales processes, playbooks, scripts, everything in between that helps us so much as sales reps, that we should never really push our agenda and our selling process onto a buyer, because everyone's going to buy even slightly different. And you kind of just have to lean into what they're leaning towards, uncover that, and don't push your own agenda on them.
Love it. Nick, last but not least.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about failure today, and none of us want to fail, but failure is actually super important in terms of career growth. So fail fast, fail cheap, fail forward, treat it as tuition. You got to continuously improve and just stick with it, and that's how you get good.
Love it. Kenny, do you got a from an ADR perspective, BDR perspective, what tips, or maybe what did you hear today that people in your role can take moving forward?
Yeah, I think there's a lot here, and something I've bounced off of both Taylor and Junior in the past before too, is that pure prospecting, that multi-threading at the beginning. So being an SDR, being an AE, reaching out to people in a similar role, being that end user, figure out how they're really organized today. What are their values? What are they driving toward goal-wise, upper level? So you have some ammunition to go into that account, break in, talk to the right people, and then also expand their knowledge of your product at the very beginning before they all hop on that call. Yeah, some great tips here. Fantastic words of wisdom from everybody on this call. Really appreciate that. I know I've learned a lot today. This was supposed to be super spooky, but I think we came away with some good tidbits here, some gold for the future. So really thanks to everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate that.
Yes, we didn't walk away empty-handed. We wanted to give you something from the grave that gives you some positivity heading into Halloween and the rest of the week. But yes, as everyone said, sales is not perfect. Ultimately, if you're closing 100% of your deals, please let me know. We'd love to have you here at Pickle for that reason. But But most, even MLB players are batting like less than 30% and getting paid millions for it. So it's just one of those concepts that sales is never perfect. It's always changing. It's always evolving. And we greatly, greatly appreciate Nick, Maggie, Junior, Kristen, and of course the hard work Kenny and Amber putting in as well for making this a reality, letting us have this platform to share these stories. And if anybody else has ghost stories, please tune in, keep us posted. We'd love to do another one of these things in the future, as well as find other platforms to share closed loss deals, because I think that's where we learn the most. But thanks for everybody for joining, and have a happy Halloween.
Hi, happy Halloween.
Everyone.
Happy Halloween, guys.
See you.